An island feared for centuries, a place where the dead refused to rest. But what if the real horror lies beneath? The fog was thick, wrapping around the wooden boat like grasping fingers. Luca Moretti adjusted his grip on the camera, his heart hammering in his chest. He had traveled from Florence to Venice for this. Poveglia, the island of the dead. It was said that over 100,000 souls had perished here, their spirits cursed to wander the crumbling ruins. But Luca wasn't here for ghost stories. As a paranormal investigator and historian, he had spent years studying abandoned places, separating fact from fiction. What intrigued him most about Poveglia wasn't the asylum or the plague pits. It was the theory of something far older buried beneath the island. Beside him, Matteo, a local fisherman and the only one reckless enough to take him here, muttered under his breath, "We shouldn't be doing this." His voice was barely audible over the sloshing of the oars. "The island, it's not just haunted, it's cursed." Luca didn't respond. His eyes were locked on the approaching shoreline, an eerie silhouette of decaying buildings and skeletal trees. As the boat scraped against the sand, Matteo hesitated. "I'll wait an hour. No more," he warned. Luca nodded and stepped onto the island. The moment his boots hit the ground, the air grew heavy, suffocating. The silence was unnatural. No birds, no insects, just the distant echo of water lapping against the shore. He pulled out his camera and began recording. "This is Poveglia," he murmured. "The island feared by locals for centuries. But what if the real horror isn't the spirits of the dead, but something much older?" He moved forward, the ruins towering over him like the bones of a long-dead beast. His research had led him to an old journal written by a doctor from the 1920s. The man had recorded strange happenings beneath the asylum, ancient symbols, underground tunnels, and an overwhelming sense of dread. Luca aimed his flashlight at the crumbling facade of the main building. A sudden gust of wind howled through the trees, carrying with it a whisper, low, guttural, ancient. He froze, and then from deep within the island, something moved. Luca's breath hitched as he stood motionless, listening. The whisper wasn't the wind. It was deliberate, layered, as if multiple voices were speaking at once. He forced himself to move forward, stepping into the ruins of what had once been the psychiatric asylum. The floor was littered with debris, broken tiles, rusted bed frames, and remnants of old medical equipment. Faded graffiti marked the walls, but beneath it, something else caught his eye. Symbols. Carved into the stone, these markings were unlike anything he had seen before. They weren't Venetian, nor Latin, but something older, something lost to time. Luca knelt, tracing the deep grooves with his fingers. He pulled out his journal, flipping through pages of research. The 1920s doctor's notes had mentioned strange carvings found underground. Was this what he had seen? A metallic clang echoed from deeper within the asylum. Luca spun around, his flashlight flickering. "Hello?" His voice was swallowed by the vast emptiness. No response. Taking a deep breath, he moved cautiously toward the sound. A collapsed hallway led to a stairwell descending into darkness. The air here was damp, thick with the scent of rot. Luca adjusted his camera, ensuring it was still recording. He took the first step down. The deeper he went, the colder it became. His fingers trembled as he gripped the railing, each step creaking beneath his weight. At the bottom, he found himself in a long, arched corridor lined with rusted doors. The asylum's underground level. Then something shifted in the darkness ahead. Luca lifted his flashlight just as a shadow darted out of sight. His heart pounded. It wasn't an animal. The movement was too precise, too human. A sudden gust of air rushed past him, carrying with it that same guttural whisper. This time he heard it clearly, not alone. Luca's blood ran cold. He swallowed hard, forcing himself to move forward. The carvings from above appeared again, etched into the walls, growing more intricate the deeper he went. Then he saw it. At the corridor's end, a door stood slightly ajar. Beyond it, the floor was not stone, but something else, something unnatural. Taking a steadying breath, Luca pushed the door open, and below his feet, the ground wasn't ground at all. It was a massive, ancient seal, and it was broken. Luca's breath caught in his throat as his flashlight illuminated the enormous seal beneath him. It wasn't made of stone, but of an unknown material, smooth yet cracked, with glowing symbols pulsating faintly in the dim light. His hands trembled as he traced the largest fracture. This was no ordinary ruin. This was something far older than the asylum above. The doctor's journal had mentioned unexplainable tremors and maddening whispers originating from the lower levels. Had he unknowingly stumbled upon the source? Luca pulled out his camera. "I found something ancient. This isn't just a burial ground for plague victims. This island was built over something else, something locked away." He hesitated before stepping forward. As his foot touched the fractured seal, the whispers returned. Louder this time, filling the room like a chorus of forgotten voices. "You should not be here." Luca's flashlight flickered violently. He stumbled back as a cold gust of air rushed past him, and the entire chamber trembled. Dust rained from the ceiling. He wasn't alone. A deep groan echoed from beneath the broken seal, a sound so unnatural it sent ice through his veins. He scrambled backward, heart pounding. Was something trapped below? Before he could react, a deafening crack split the air. The seal fractured further, and the floor beneath him caved. Luca barely had time to gasp before he was falling, plummeting into the abyss below. Darkness swallowed him whole. For a moment, there was nothing. No sound, no light, just the sensation of free fall. Then he hit the ground, hard. Pain exploded in his side as he gasped for air. His flashlight had landed a few feet away, its beam illuminating his surroundings. He was in a vast cavern, its walls lined with more of those strange carvings. But these were different, more intricate, more detailed. And then he saw them, skeletons, dozens of them, some human, others not. Twisted remains of creatures he couldn't comprehend, their bones fused with metal and stone. Luca struggled to his feet, his mind reeling. This wasn't just an underground ruin, it was a tomb, and whatever had been sealed away down here, it wasn't human. Luca's breath came in ragged gasps as he stumbled through the cavern, his flashlight shaking in his grip. The skeletons, some human, some grotesquely inhuman, were sprawled across the stone floor, frozen in eerie, twisted poses. Some clutched their skulls as if they had died screaming. The carvings on the walls were more detailed here, depicting scenes that made his stomach twist. They showed humanoid figures bowing before towering beings with elongated limbs and hollow eyes. In another section, he saw depictions of war, chaos, flames, and a monstrous entity consuming an entire city. Luca swallowed hard. This wasn't just a burial site. This was a prison. A faint shuffling noise echoed behind him. He whipped around, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. Dust swirled in the air, but nothing moved. Then he saw it. At the far end of the cavern, a massive stone door stood partially ajar. Unlike the rest of the chamber, it was pristine, untouched by time. Strange symbols pulsed faintly along its surface, as if still alive. Luca hesitated. Every instinct screamed at him to turn back, but the investigator in him needed answers. He approached cautiously, pressing a hand to the door's cold surface. A whisper slithered through the air. "You cannot undo what is already broken." Luca froze. The voice hadn't come from his head. It had echoed around the chamber. He yanked his hand back, heart hammering. Then the door moved. Stone scraped against stone as it slid open another inch. A gust of air rushed out from the gap, thick, stale, and filled with the scent of decay. And then something stepped forward. Luca didn't see it at first. Just the shifting shadows, the unnatural way the darkness seemed to ripple. But as his flashlight steadied, the shape began to emerge. Elongated limbs, hollow, sunken eyes, a body that twisted in ways it shouldn't. Luca stumbled back, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. This wasn't a ghost. This was something ancient, something that had been waiting, and now it was free. Luca's breath hitched as the figure emerged from the darkness. Its movements were slow, deliberate, almost testing the air as if sensing its surroundings for the first time in centuries. Its elongated limbs twitched unnaturally, its hollow eyes fixed on him. His instincts screamed at him to run, but his body refused to move. The thing, it wasn't just alive, it was aware. A whisper slithered through the chamber, though the creature's mouth never moved. "You have come too far!" Luca's pulse thundered in his ears. The voice wasn't just heard, it pressed against his mind, crawling through his thoughts like an invading force. His head pounded as flashes of strange images flooded his vision. Ancient cities swallowed by darkness, people writhing in agony, something immense stirring beneath the earth. With a desperate gasp, he staggered backward. His foot struck loose rubble, and he fell hard, his flashlight spinning across the floor. Shadows stretched unnaturally as the creature took another step forward. Luca fumbled for his camera, hands shaking. He needed to document this. The world needed to know what was buried beneath Poveglia. He raised the lens, but before he could hit record, the air around him seemed to shift. The cavern trembled, and the strange symbols on the walls flickered like dying embers. The creature halted, its head tilting slightly. Then, without warning, it shrieked. A sound so inhuman, so gut-wrenchingly ancient, it sent Luca scrambling to his feet, covering his ears. The walls trembled violently. Dust rained from above. The entire chamber felt like it was coming apart. Then, from the darkness beyond the massive stone door, something else stirred. Luca didn't wait to see what it was. Heart pounding, he grabbed his flashlight and bolted. He sprinted through the cavern, dodging bones and debris, desperate to find a way out. Behind him, the shrieking grew louder, angrier. The whispers returned, overlapping, echoing in languages he didn't understand. The ground cracked beneath his feet, as if something massive was trying to push through. Luca reached the spot where he had fallen in. Looking up, he could barely see the opening above. It was too high. A guttural growl rippled through the air. And then, he felt it. Something was reaching for him. Luca's body screamed in protest as he clawed his way up the jagged rocks, his fingers torn and bleeding. Above him, the opening to the surface felt impossibly far. But below, something was coming. The whispers turned into wails, the very air distorting with unnatural energy. The entity he had awakened was not alone. Shadows coiled and slithered along the cavern walls, taking shape. Figures with hollow eyes and gaping mouths, their skeletal hands stretching toward him. They are the ones who came before me, Luca realized with a sickening dread. The ones who had disturbed the seal, the ones who had failed to escape. A sudden, violent tremor nearly knocked him loose. Cracks raced up the cavern walls, splitting open like festering wounds. The ground below collapsed inward, revealing a swirling abyss, an endless, writhing darkness that pulsed with something alive. And then, from the void, a hand, massive, clawed, inhuman, began to rise. Luca screamed, forcing himself upward. His fingers found the edge of the broken stone floor above, and with one last desperate pull, he hauled himself over. He lay gasping on the asylum's underground level, his mind spinning. The cavern below was now shrouded in an unnatural fog, but the whispers, they had not stopped. If anything, they were growing stronger. He stumbled to his feet, gripping his camera like a lifeline. He had to get out. He had to tell someone, anyone, about what he had seen. Luca ran, his feet barely touching the crumbling floors as he sprinted through the asylum's ruins. He reached the surface, choking on the damp, salty air. Matteo's boat was still waiting at the shore. "Matteo!" he screamed, waving frantically. "We have to go, now!" Matteo, pale as death, had already started the engine. "What did you do?" he shouted, terror in his eyes. "The island, look!" Luca turned, and his blood froze. The entire island was shifting. Trees withered instantly, their branches twisting into grotesque shapes. The asylum's ruins groaned as if something beneath them was moving. The very land pulsed, as if alive. Matteo didn't wait for an explanation. He yanked Luca into the boat and pushed off. The engine roared as they sped away, waves crashing violently against the hull. Luca turned back one last time. The island was vanishing into the mist, but he felt, that the thing beneath it was no longer sleeping. It was awake, and it would not be forgotten.